Hi, my name is Steph Nelson, and I'm going to be showing you how you can do standalone recordings on your SCADAS XS, meaning that you don't need to be connected to a computer to take data. If you're interested in taking data with a tablet to get a visual view of what's going on during data acquisition, you can check out the links in the description. This method will allow you to acquire data without being connected to a computer or a tablet. The first thing that you're going to need is a SCADAS XS. The next thing you're going to be using is a micro USB cable. This is to connect the SCADAS XS to a PC. And lastly, you'll need any SCADAS XS compatible cables that you're using. In this case, I'm using a 9-pin LEMO that's connected to a triaxial accelerometer. If you have any questions about what cables are compatible or which cables you should get, you should check the links in the description. To power on your SCADAS XS, press and hold the battery button for about 10 seconds. It should flash blue before having a solid blue ring around the recording button. To change the mode, hold the replay button and toggle the battery button, and a green LED will toggle between WLAN, LAN, and USB mode. So first I'm going to go to the SimCenter Test Lab folder, and we're going to be creating a template that will tell the SCADAS what to record, how long to record, what type of data to record while it's in standalone recording mode. I'm going to open up Signature and go to Signature Acquisition. You can do this in Test Lab Neo too, and I'll show you how to do that at the end of the video. Make sure that your SCADAS XS is connected to your computer by plugging it into the USB port in the back of the XS and plugging the USB port into your computer. You can do this without being connected to the SCADAS XS by loading a virtual front end in offline mode, but I recommend being connected because you're going to have to be connected later on anyways. So first, come up to New File, and we're going to begin our channel setup. For this setup, I have one triaxial accelerometer in all 3 directions. So I'm going to begin my setup as I normally would. After my channel setup is done, I'm going to go to Tracking Setup. Since I'm going to be testing a steering wheel column in a vehicle, I'm going to set mine to stationary since I don't expect it to change a lot with respect to time. This is the important part because this will determine how long your SCADAS XS will record while it's in standalone recording mode. If you want it to record for a really long time, you can put in an infinite number of seconds, such as 10,000, but for these purposes, I'm only going to be putting in 500 seconds. I can also manually stop the recording whenever I want while it's in standalone recording mode, so I'm not too concerned about the exact duration. I'll take 5 averages a second, and I'm going to have it set to stationary. Acquisition setup is where I can change my frequency parameters. I'm going to set mine to 1 Hz resolution and keep it at 6400 Hz. Now, I'm not going to go to online processing because the SCADAS XS in standalone recording mode only records throughput data or time data. It does not compute or record any frequency or block data. That's going to have to be done post-processing. So at this stage, I can hit File, Save as Standalone Recording Template. I'm going to want to put this somewhere, probably on my desktop, so that I can get to it later. And I'm going to name this Steering Wheel because that's what I'm going to be testing. It's also good on this stage to look and make sure that your recording settings are what they should be, such as the duration being set to at least 500 seconds for mine, and the bandwidth and the frequency being what they should. Once I click Save, I should be good to go. After the template is created, it should appear as a .xrdf file. The XRDF file is the special SCADAS XS recording standalone template file. This is what we will be putting onto the XS. To access the XS directly, make sure that your SCADAS XS is plugged into your computer and is set to USB mode. The USB green LED should be lit next to USB on the front of your SCADAS XS. There are a few different ways to get to the SCADAS XS browser software. One is to go to the SimCenter Hardware Diagnostics folder on your computer, and the other is much more simple. Simply go into the Windows button and start typing in SCADAS XS browser. Once you click that, the picture will pop up of the SCADAS, and if properly connected, it will automatically open a folder that contains 2 different folders. One says Files and one says Templates. Now, contrary to what you might think, Templates is actually not where you would put your template file. Templates are supposed to be put in the Files folder. This is the folder that the SCADAS XS reads. So I'm going to click and drag my file into this Files folder. Now you'll notice that I have 2 .xrdf files in here, one that we've just created and one that was already in here. The way that the SCADAS XS decides which template to read is by numerical alphabet order. So starting with numbers being the highest in the hierarchy, and then the alphabet being the next, this template right now would read before the new template that I've built. Since I don't want that, I can fix it by changing and adding a 1, or I can simply delete the other template, or move it into the templates folder where it will not be read. Currently, right now, this is the template that will read above this template. Once that's done, I'm all set to go, and I can start recording on my Scatus XS. So here I'm going to be setting up my standalone recording for a vehicle with a single axis accelerometer mounted to the steering wheel. First, make sure that the Scatus XS is turned on. You can do this by holding it down until it flashes blue around the rings and then goes a steady blue color. To start the recording, press the recording button until a solid red ring appears around it. When it is red, the recording has started and your Scatus XS is now taking data. Now your test can begin. During the test, the data will be recorded and stored on the Scatus XS as a time or a throughput file. To manually stop a recording, you can press the record button and it should turn from red to blue again. If your recording finishes its time duration that you set, it'll turn blue on its own. To turn off the Scatus XS, press and hold the button again for 10 seconds until it is completely powered off. Now we're going to pull that data off of the Scatus XS. So go back to the Scatus XS browser, and under Files, there should be a folder that's named the same as what you named your template. If you click on that, there will be a .xtrp file. This needs to be converted to be used in TestLab, but this is the recorded data that was taken on the XS. If you've taken multiple rounds of data, you might have multiple measurements, such as here. So if I were to press record twice, I would end up with these 2 measurements in this folder. We're going to take this data and I'm going to click and drag it and put it on my desktop just for now to keep it safe. Now open up TestLab Desktop or TestLab Neo. Either one will work. Now I'm going to navigate to where I put that data. So using my computer button, I can go into my computer and I left my data on the desktop. So I'll navigate to my desktop and I have my 2 files here. Now if I highlight them and I right click, there's an import to active project. And if I click that, it'll import the data now into my project. So if I go now to my section, my data is available and can be displayed. If I wanted to do further processing on this data, I could add it to the input basket, load in the signature throughput processing add-in, and I could go ahead and do the processing that needs to be done. To do this in Neo, click on the SimCenter TestLab folder and open Desktop Neo. Go to this PC and make sure that you're selected in list mode so that you can see the folders. I'm going to locate those files on my desktop again. I have my .xtrp files here. I can highlight, right-click, and hit import, or I can use the input button up at the top. If I click import, now the data is in my folder. I can click on a pivot table, and it's available for viewing. And now you know how to use the Scatus XS in standalone recording mode.